Check.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to our second attempts at talking about this album. Because,
Technical difficulties.
yeah, more like I didn't switch the input difficulties. But anyway, welcome to Side 1, Side B with Dave and Steve. I'm Steve.
And I'm Dave.
And today we're going to be talking about Paul Di'Anno's first post-Iron Maiden solo album, Di'Anno, released in 1984. Dave, how familiar are you with Paul Di'Anno?
I am familiar with those first two Iron Maiden records. More with the first one because I think it's a better record. But yeah, that's about the extent of my Paul Di'Anno knowledge.
Now, when I discovered this album, it's because this would have been back in, I want to say, 2003, 2004, when I first started getting into Iron Maiden. And I'd purchased, I think at this point I'd probably gotten all of the Iron Maiden records. So I was looking for solo stuff, and I bought all of Bruce Dickinson's stuff. And I was looking to see if he had anything else, because I think he's a really good singer. I thought he fit early Iron Maiden very well. We were talking about it off microphone earlier. I think we both wish there was more Paul Di'Anno in the world.
Yeah, I wish I like the Bruce Dickinson albums quite a bit. And even though there's only one Paul Di'Anno album I really liked, I would have liked to have seen like a couple more albums like that first one, like maybe like 3 or 4 albums like that first one. And then if that meant that we would have to wait a few years for Run to the Hills or The Trooper, so be it.
Yeah, and I think he would have been capable of singing the songs on Number of the Beast. I hear people say that they wanted to get a different singer because they didn't think he fit the style of music, but I thought Killers was reasonably close to the music on A Number of the Beast. So I think it was more a personality difference than I think a creative difference.
Although didn't Bruce write a lot of the lyrics, or was that a little after Number of the Beast?
He did. So it wouldn't have been the same record, but I think Steve Harris wrote probably about half the record, if not more.
Okay.
Bruce wasn't officially credited on that because he still had record label stuff due to his previous band Samson, which that gives you a preview to a future episode. I'm going to bring a Samson record in. Anyway, back to Di'Anno. So this record, I was probably looking at his Metal Archives lineup, and I was able to find his band Battlezone pretty easily. They released 3 albums. 2 of them in the 80s sounded more like the new wave of British heavy metal style that you'd probably expect from him. Not really Iron Maiden, not up to that same caliber, but probably, B tier maybe. And then he was also in a mid-paced metal band called Killers, which obviously named after his Iron Maiden record. And that one was probably the best thing he's done after Iron Maiden. Probably something we might even look into someday. This one, I could not find any information on it. I couldn't find a torrent of it. This was like kind of pre-YouTube, so nobody like ripped it and put it online. Streaming wasn't really a thing yet. So the only way I was able to get a hold of this record back then was to import it from England, and it was surprisingly cheap. I thought something that rare would have been, like $50, but I don't remember what I spent on this at the time, but I mean, I was still in high school and living in my parents' house. So I probably didn't spend more than like $10 on this.
So when we put it on, are we going to accidentally summon a Kandarian demon who will possess the dead and torment us, like in the movie Evil Dead?
Well, since I've listened to this record since I bought it, I assume that would have happened when I first played it, but I mean,
okay.
It was in the same collection as a number of heavy metal records, so maybe it got possessed by the Opeth record sitting under it. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. We'll find out.
I don't want to spoil what this album sounds like because I like legit want your reaction to it. But it's like, if I was to ask you what you think Paul Di'Anno would do post Iron Maiden, what would you imagine it to be?
Kind of like scuzzy dirtbag thrash, like the kind of thing that you could listen to if you had a jean jacket on with some vomit stains on it and were like bumming beers off of the table at the bar that had already left and had a half finished room temperature pitcher and you didn't want to pay for anything, like like that general vibe. the scuzzy dirtbag thrash that I associate with the band that wrote The Prowler, not necessarily the band that wrote Run to the Hills.
Well, you kind of described his 90s career, but this album, we'll put it on, and we'll when we come back, we'll see how close you got. But before we do that, I'm going to talk a bit about the lineup on here. Besides the drummer, Dave Irving, who is separate from the band, so I don't think he was even in the band. I wonder if they just got him as a session guy, because they list it, and then it just says Dave Irving played the drums on the album. So,
or maybe he was in the band and he quit while recording.
Yeah, it must have been something like that. But I was looking up on his Discogs profile, and he had a career post this album, but everybody else, nothing. The only credits are this album, the single for this album, and the live recording. I think they put out like a video to promote this. There's 2 guitar players, Lee Slater and PJ Ward, Kevin Brown on bass, Mark Venables on keyboard, and obviously Paul Di'Anno, the Iron Man himself. Well, he's not an Iron Maiden because he's
yeah.
The album cover shows it looks like a gang of British vagrants are getting ready to come stab you with a switchblade, I think.
Yeah, this looks like the kind of guys who would mug you in a British 80s movie, not an American 80s movie. They don't look like the Stephen King villains that are bullies that nearly kill children. The kind of people who try to mug you in a British 80s movie and end up stabbing you, even though there is nothing in the scene that indicates it will escalate to that point.
Also, since there's no information on it, I don't know who any of these guys are. So I try to picture what genre they all do based on how they look. Like the guy with just the mustache, I assume, is the keyboard player.
Yeah, the guy with just the mustache does look like the power ballad kind of metal guy a little bit to me. The guy, I'm gonna assume the guy in the middle is Di'Anno.
Yep.
He's got kind of like the coveralls, so he has kind of like that tough working class thing going. The guy next to him, I don't know, he looks like a new wave guy to me, kind of. And then the guy on the far end,
I bet these two are the two on the right are the guitar players, and I bet you the guy on the very left is the bass player.
Yeah, yeah.
We have no way, because I can't find any information about these guys, so I don't know.
Is the live recording? Is there a video of it, or?
Oh yeah, I guess we could figure out based on that. So I mean, we're not going to right now, but
yeah. So the drummer's not on the cover either, and he's not credited.
There's 6 people, but there's only 5 people pictured. So
yeah, so so that could either mean that he was a session drummer or that he was fired partway through recording. So
it really could be either, or maybe it was a Spinal Tap thing. Maybe you just spontaneously combusted.
Yeah.
Maybe they all spontaneously combusted, and that's why only Paul's around. Because these days he's got to do the shows in a wheelchair. So maybe he was gonna spontaneously combust and it didn't happen. So
we're gonna find out that some of these guys took on stage names and are members of Killers or something. But yeah.
Well, all right. Well, we're gonna dive into 1984's Di'Anno album, and we'll come back and give you our impressions of side 1. Hey everyone, Future Steve here. Just a slight correction. We didn't really get any of that right about the people on the front cover. We looked at the live video, and it turns out that we were about 50% wrong, I think. So make fun of us for that. Thanks.
I wasn't expecting it to sound like John Bon Jovi.
Well, Dave, I think you probably have a very good idea how I was feeling in 2004 when I waited for this album for 2 weeks to show up at my house, and I was expecting Iron Maiden or Killers Part 3, and got this.
This had to have been a stab at commercial success because they just needed to pay their rent or something. Because I think we didn't really talk about the cover we did to some degree, but there is one detail that we have talked about in previous episodes that we neglected to mention this time, and that is that the photo on the cover is exactly the same on the front and on the back, and the cardboard that the LP was in is like the flimsiest cardboard I have
Yeah.
ever handled for a record. Like, this is
No
I'm
insert.
Yeah.
Maybe it came with one, but
I'm surprised this made it across the ocean.
yeah. So
I didn't know he was capable of making something that sounded like Styx. There were a few
it does
times.
sound like Styx.
There were a few times when I thought like there were some cool guitar parts buried beneath some things. Like sometimes that would come out. Then sometimes it'd be kind of like the chugging rhythm guitar with. I didn't like the synth sound in any of it, but in the less bad moments, I was like, okay, this is like a third-rate Cars thing they're going for maybe. And then no,
He's a very good synth player, but
yeah, I'm not going to critique
he didn't
his
pick
technique.
a good sound.
Yeah, this sounded just like generic 80s power ballad patches.
Yeah, like it's like a Casio like stock setting or
Yeah.
something.
I guess we had to eventually get to something we wouldn't like. So, that is what it is. I'm glad I discovered this existed at least.
And that's why I picked it. It's like it's not good, but it's interesting, I think.
Yeah, like
The Room. Like The
Yeah.
Room is a very interesting movie, but
and
I
it
wouldn't say it's
sounds like, and the music sounds like the kind of music that might be played during a sex scene in the room.
good. Yeah. Well, and when we were talking about Headless Cross, there were a few moments that you called like 80s exercise montage moments, and this whole album is an 80s exercise montage moment. So.
Yeah. It was like either like a training montage for like a sports movie, or it is a training montage for one of those dozens of low budget ninja movies that came out in like from 88 to about 92 that I watch ironically a lot because they're funny to like crack a six pack and laugh through. But yeah, this isn't what I was expecting from Paul Di'Anno. This is
Not what I was expecting either. Before we move on to side B, I want to talk about a few interesting facts. Unfortunately, I can't find any information about this album. I think Di'Anno, I assume he's embarrassed by this album because nobody's brought it up in interviews to him. He's never like talked about it. I don't know if he's done like a biography or anything, but I couldn't find any like quotes about this.
he has a condition for interviewers that they don't bring up this album, maybe.
Or maybe just nobody knows about it. But like I couldn't even find any like promo interviews from the time. There's the one live show I can find on YouTube, which we might check out a few tracks from that just to see what that's like. But otherwise, he made this album. Sounds like he tried to promote it. Sounds like he was trying to get a Bon Jovi paycheck, and it didn't work out because, I mean, all the musicians on this album, I'd say, are very good.
Yeah, they're competent.
Yeah, and I would even say if this album maybe was mixed differently and the keyboard player chose something different, like, maybe like a Deep Purple style organ or something, I would probably be more interested in this. I think at that point it sounded more like Whitesnake, which I think is one of the better like hair bands.
I looked up this album on Wikipedia, because I was trying to figure out what the fuck I was listening to, and they listed the genre as soft rock, hard rock. So I think that means that it is, as Nirvana put it before they broke into Territorial Pissings, moderate rock.
Yeah, I think moderate rock would be the best way to describe this. It's like if Kiss made every song Beth.
Yeah. and then like they closed it out with a ballad that was way too long, like 6 minutes long.
Yeah. Like I think that song had more of the most interesting moments, but it was just too long. Two other facts I want to bring up before we move on to side two. I can't find anything to corroborate this, but somebody said in the comments for the YouTube bootleg of this that this album went platinum in Japan. I could see that. This really does like sound like something that you'd hear in like I don't know, like a Sonic the Hedgehog like J-pop soundtrack or something.
This album reeks of Big in Japan.
Yeah,
Not in a cool cheap trick way, but yeah.
And It had a way cooler name over in Japan, Two Swimmers and a Bag of Jockies, which was intended as a tribute to their friend and ex-drummer Mark Stewart. Oh, I guess that answers the question. He just didn't stay in the band.
But yeah, Mark Stewart has a thanks to on the back, but not a drum credit. So I think they finished it with a studio drummer.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe he was just helping out or something. So
yeah,
probably Paul Di'Anno and Mark Stewart are probably still cool, I'd imagine. Probably haven't seen each other since this album.
Probably, yeah.
Album reached number 105 on the UK album charts. Huh, I guess it didn't chart in America.
105 isn't, that's not even the Hot 100. That's not enough to leave a lasting impact.
Oh, and the last interesting fact that I'm going to bring up before side B is Heart User. The second track on here was written by Terry Britton and Sue Schifrin. Terry Britton being a singer-songwriter and record producer who has written songs for Tina Turner, Cliff Richard, Olivia Newton-John, Status Quo, Michael Jackson, and others. So that kind of tells you they were really trying to get Di'Anno on the Bon Jovi.
John Bon Jovi.
John Bon Jovi.
Yeah. I like Bon John Bovi. Yeah.
Bon John Bovi. I guess the biggest thing I wonder about this is, was this Di'Anno's idea, or was this like a record company idea? Were they like, hey, you're out Iron Maiden, you want to make some bucks? Or was he just like, I really want to make moderate rock?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, considering everything he's done since then, it seems like he really needed to pay rent.
Yeah, because after this, Battlezone has a bit more of a glam edge. Like, it kind of reminds me of the first Def Leppard album, which is our friend Pete's favorite band.
Yes.
And
you have heard it here. Pete loves Def Leppard.
Yes. So much so that he insisted that the record was behind him at practice yesterday.
Yes.
All right, so I know you're really looking
this.
forward to seeing if they can bring this together on side B. So what do you think? You think they're going to bring it around?
No, but I'm going to make a prediction that there is going to, like, I have been giving each song a chance as it goes for some reason. Like, I have in the opening notes been like, okay, I'm ready. Turn this around, do something for me. And it has so far then pivoted to the most hilarious cheat. Like, we laughed out loud multiple times through this, but I'm going to predict there's
the beginning of I think it was the runner. Yeah, we were both laughing. I think I was crying so hard because it sounded like the opening of like at the beginning of a VHS tape when they're like, check out our upcoming releases. Like, it just sounded like promo music.
But I'm going to predict like that one of the back half of the last side is going to have a song I like.
Well, let's see. We got, Razor Edge has a really cool song title. So
yeah, or it could be.
I think Lady Heartbreak's probably going to be another fucking ballad.
Probably is. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because you look at the titles like Flaming Heart and Heart User both sound like pop songs, but like The Runner and Tales of the Unexpected both sound like Iron Maiden song titles.
Yeah, the lyrics were incredibly generic, by the way.
Yeah,
which isn't something I can say about like Iron Maiden. Like Iron Maiden, they even before Bruce Dickinson, they went kind of weird for their song topics, and then they didn't just do like the most basic ass generic rhymes. There was nothing noteworthy about any of the lyrics.
Yeah, it's all cheesy love songs, which I personally I don't like love songs unless they're like unique. Like I typo negative stab at a love song I think is good. But,
yeah, there's a handful of love songs I like, but yeah, for the most part.
Well, and like one other thing, it's this doesn't seem like an album that like two metal and punk dudes get around, drink beer and listen to.
No.
And at the same time, I don't see myself bringing a date home and being like, oh yeah, I want to turn on the charm here. Let's put on some Heart User.
Bring on the Runner and like listen to Paul Di'Anno talk about trying your best.
All right, this is side B. We'll see you all here in a little bit. And we are back from side B of Di'Anno's 1984 self-titled record. David, what did you think of side B?
Okay. It did get better. The very first song I hated just as much as, as side one.
We both audibly laughed when it was the same like cheesy like 80s PSA like keyboard sound.
But yeah, and then it got into like it didn't turn into something I would regularly listen to, but the remaining 4 tracks were fine. There were moments when it let like the galloping rhythm guitar like be more prominent in the mix and not just get buried under the cheesy synth or the pointless lead guitar noodling. And it was, yeah, there were points that I actually liked. And then the names weren't even doing it any favor. Like I was expecting Lady Heartbreak to be the worst ballad of all time, but no, it was a fine song.
You know, starting with Bright Lights, the album I think shifted more into what I would call more of a glam rock direction. I mean, it was still like the glam metal sound, but the song structures themselves, like I could see like what this album makes me think is it's too bad that Paul Di'Anno didn't do like a New York Dolls style album rather than this, because
Yeah,
I could totally see him like rocking that kind of style. Because especially on Antigua, that song I thought sounded like like something you'd hear in like late 70s glam rock. And also with Road Rat, I think, which was probably the best song on the record.
yeah. Album closer is the best song. It was the complete opposite of what the beginning of the album was.
Yeah, like if you ever this album is actually available now. Like back in the day, I couldn't find it easily, but this is actually on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Music and all that. So it's like if you want to check this out of curiosity, and you know, say you're more like a Iron Maiden fan, I guess. I'd say start with Bright Lights. But you know, if you're like a Bon Jovi or like a White Snake or a Def Leppard fan, you'd probably like this whole album.
Yeah. One thing that I think is funny is I think the first side was the soft rock side and the second one was the hard rock side. So that's why the Wikipedia article had soft rock, comma, hard rock. It was describing the 2 different sides of the record.
And you know that really fits well with our name. You made a comment last time, and we'll kind of get to test this theory. Side B typically is weaker, but in this case, side B I'd say was much stronger.
Yeah, there were songs that I wouldn't instantly flip the radio away from on the second side.
Yeah, you know, and like Road Rat. I mean, you know, It's like, Mom, can we have turbo? And she's like, we have turbo at home.
Yeah. I am glad I listened to the whole thing because that was interesting and not anything I would have guessed as being part of Paul Di'Anno's career.
Yeah, it's interesting to bring this out to, you know, not only like show to somebody else and analyze, but you know, when I got this, I don't think I really gave it much of a chance because I barely remembered side 2. So listening to this and actually like sitting down and analyzing it, you know, made me it was an interesting experience. Certainly not something that either of us. I doubt you're going to be adding Heart User to your Spotify playlist. But.
Yeah, no. One thing that it did make me wonder is I wonder if it was because of a lot of stuff like this that a lot of heavy metal became so anti-keyboard for a while.
Yeah, because I remember it was a bit of a controversy when Iron Maiden started using it on Somewhere in Time, and Judas Priest used it on the Turbo album. When you hear keyboards in metal, you think of the more of the glam metal type stuff.
Final Countdown.
yeah, exactly. Although I unironically love the Final Countdown.
Although there's a degree to which, like nowadays, people think of a lot of the industrial metal from like the 90s used a lot of keyboards.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's been a shift since then, but
yeah, I think there's more of it now. I mean, back in the 80s, I think even when keyboards are really prominent, even like the bigger bands just shoved the keyboard player off stage for some reason, because there was a perception that it wasn't cool. But
yeah,
I don't know. For me, it's like, I don't know. John Lord is my favorite keyboard player, and I wish there were more bands that utilize an organ player like he played organ.
Yeah, and then there's also a degree to which a lot of this kind of stuff is shove a technically competent like piano or organ player behind a synthesizer and don't really teach them about how to do anything besides use like the basic patches and not like really catch the versatility, like the weird sound shit you can get with the synthesizer. Like, we are recording this on the same day that we did the previous episode when we listened to Talking Heads, who like figured out a lot of like really creative and interesting synthesizer stuff. And so to hear like the effort that was put into Talking Heads with help from Brian Eno to capture really certain moods and like the small tweaks you can make to make big differences in sound, just to hear someone be like, okay, I just press the keys and play, makes a really big difference in like how well the instrument can be used.
Yeah, I thought the keyboard player on this album was very good. There were moments, especially, I almost wonder, because on the first side, it seemed like he just took a Casio keyboard and plugged it in, and went. But on the second side, he was using a lot less generic of patches, I'd say. Things that were a bit more interesting.
And then like more just general piano too, which makes me think, hey, maybe he was just a piano player who was doing synthesizers because it was the style at the time.
Hey everyone, Future Steve here. So we're about to talk a bit about how this album doesn't seem to be talked about, but since then I have since found quotes about this from his autobiography that he did indeed release called The Beast. And when he talks about this album in that, he said that he put the band together because he wanted to do something that he didn't think his fans would expect. So he left Iron Maiden, so he wanted to do basically what he probably considered to be the exact opposite of Iron Maiden. He was into the AOR bands at the time, and he wanted to explore that sound. So when we talk about whether or not this was a record experiment or not, it doesn't seem to be. It looks like this was all a Paul Di'Anno idea, and it just didn't pan out. So anyway, I probably should have looked that up before we talked about it, but what do I look like? A guy that's not lazy? Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled podcast.
There's no information about any of these guys, so I'd be curious to hear what the experience for this record is, because it's strange, because I think Di'Anno's pretty much disowned it,
or he just doesn't mention it anymore.
Yeah, well, like I said, I can't even find interviews of him talking about it at the time, so I wonder if they did it. They played like one live show, and then they're like, all right, we're done. We didn't get John Bon Jovi money, so off to our next thing. But.
Yeah.
And then, after this, Di'Anno went on to do Battle Zone, which is much better. I'd say that one has some more, it has some like 80s glam moments, but it's much more like, I'd probably say maybe more like heavier than Def Leppard's first album. But yeah, so that was Di'Anno. If anybody wants to listen to it, it's out there now. You can listen to it. Paul doesn't perform any songs off of it. He pretty much just does Iron Maiden cover songs anymore. But
yeah,
the record is still cheap, surprisingly. I when I was looking through the Discogs page, I think I saw one for like $10. So
nice.
You can own the flimsiest record jacket in history, put out by FM Records. And there's a telephone number on here.
It's probably been disconnected.
You call it like, oh, it's Paul Di'Anno himself. All right.
Paul, what were you thinking when you wrote...
Look, I just wanted drugs, okay? Yeah. All right, well, that was Di'Anno. Next time, I'll probably pick something enjoyable rather than interesting. Do you have anything in mind for your next one?
Oh, yeah. Next, I am going to do the UK version of The Clash's self-titled debut from '77.
All right, well, and I hear you have an interesting story to go along with that one. So
I do, yeah.
Everybody will want to tune in for that one. So, well, all right, well, that was that. So everybody go listen to Di'Anno, and then let us know in the comments how much you loved it.
Yep, catch you on the flip side. Bam, nailed it, catchphrase.